Hello? Do you hear me? I hope you're doing great. Welcome back in this recording. In our recording of tonight, we're doing a series of podcasts where we discuss analytically يعني بصورة تحليلية. We discuss analytically a short story, but again, I mentioned that in every one of the podcasts that we had before, that the idea is not about the narration of the story as much as it's about, looking at each one of the words and how they, fabrically speaking, form the structure of the sentence here and the meaning of each one of the words and how they perform, how they do what they do in the sentence in a way that they save the sentence by the bell. Now, maybe this is a new expression for you, but sometimes when we talk about somebody who was saved by the last chance or he was saved in the last minute or last second, we say he was saved by the bell, or it was saved by the bell, or she was saved by the bell. And the meaning of saved by the bell, it means that the person was saved in the last second, and it's coming from wrestling, where the person in charge of ringing the bell rings the bell before one of the fighters knocks off the other one. So that means he was saved by the bell. So he was saved by the ringing on the bell of the person in charge of that matter. So in the middle of the night, and just before we move on to the analysis of the reading here and what it means and what we do and how we go about and through each one of the sentences here, I just want to mention that when we do this reading, we do that collaboratively, me and you as a team. And this is coming from the basic principle that I do have here, that working as a team makes the dream. I remember when I was back in Hawaii, and there was this person who kept saying, teamwork makes dream work. So we do this collaboratively as a team while I'm sipping my cup of coffee. So what I want to mention here, that when you do this kind of reading, we are shooting for the moon. We have very high aspirations and inspirations. Don't tell me to know the difference or to guess the difference, because I'm telling you and testing you about the difference. What's the difference? Write it in the comment. What's the difference between inspiration and aspiration? These two probably synonymous to each other, but to some extent. They're used in different kind of context, and the word context is one of my favorite words in English. So just to kick things started from the early get-go, I'm not going to spill the beans and read everything here. To spill the beans means to tell you the secret, tell you everything when it comes to, the story or this short paragraph that we are putting in perspective of analysis here. The idea is not the paragraph. Actually, I don't care if I read it or not. It's more of the chit chat that we do have with each other, because that is going to give us the real chance to expose our ears and our mind to the true listening of English. I'm not advocating for being a native speaker, because I'm an EFL learner, but you have to make sure that the sources of your input of language are diversified. They're not just coming from the fact that I'm speaking right now and I'm the only resourceful person that you should listen to. No, that's not the case here. I am really not this kind of person who just tells you we're not in monopoly of language learning or language teaching here. We work collaboratively. I remember a story that I was told by a professor of mine who happened to travel once to Indiana State University, and he met a friend of his there. And that friend happened to be working for some time in Iraq, back in Iraq during the 2003 plus war, where the coalition forces invaded Iraq and they were just looking for weapons of mass destruction, or WMD, weapons of mass destruction. Weapons of mass destruction, WMD. And the professor, my friend, my Iraqi professor, told him, "You've been a lot in Iraq, coming in, back and forth. What have you noticed as the difference, culturally speaking or language speaking wise, between the American people and the Iraqi people?" And said, the other person paused for a second, and then he told him this. One Iraqi equals, he actually took his marker. He wrote one Iraqi on the whiteboard. And then he put the sign of equals next to it. And then he said, one Iraqi equals 10 Americans, period. 10 Iraqis equal nil or zero. The Iraqi professor got really confused, and he said, explain it to me, because you got me lost here. What's the point? What are you trying to say? What's all of this about? The American professor said that during my time spent in Iraq, I noticed that people are really creative there. They're really hardworking people. They spend most of their life working. They're dedicated, generous, hospitable people. But that's if we look at each one of them individually. Once they are in a team, they cannot and don't know how to work. And if you don't know how to work in a team, you're not going to get anywhere. I remember the story again, just to back up the story that I'm telling you right now, that it's about the destination. It's about knowing where you're heading as a team, as in a company. So one of the key features of the private sector companies is that they develop team synergy, teamwork, team activity, because they know that once the team fails, the whole company capital is going to fail or doomed to fail. The whole investment, the whole assets of the company lies in the human source. So if people don't know how to collaboratively, interactively work with each other as one company, as one team, they are not going to get to the targets or objectives that they do draw for themselves by the end of the year or by the end of the 5-year plan or whatever. So going back and backing up the story that I was told by my professor, I remember I read once about Alice in Wonderland, where she got to a fork road, and fork road is a road that leads to two separate roads. And she saw a Cheshire cat. It's a cat that comes from UK. A kind of cat, as far as I know. And she asked her, "Excuse me, which road should I take?" The cat smartly answered, "Where do you want to go?" Alice thought for a second and then said, "I don't know." The cat then built on what Alice has said, and she said, "Then it doesn't matter." What she meant, the cat meant that it doesn't matter which road you take, because you don't know where you're heading. And because you don't know where you're heading, you're not going to get there. You're not going to have a destination you're heading to, or you want to get to. So that's, in a nutshell, what we're talking about here. One of the features of a successful team is to be able to listen to each one of the team members, because these components, these small components, build up to the final product that you see, the product that the company tries to get to people, whether that's an idea or a book or a successful product. I've seen Apple products release yesterday, the iPhone 15, and I was really impressed and fascinated by their word choices. Probably, if you like, we can just do an analysis of their speeches, the CEO's speeches, and how they worked really hard actually to present to you something marketable as a team. They, as we say in English, they took the whole 9 yards of the marketing yesterday, like a black hole, where the whole world was looking and keen to know what's coming in the next generation of iPhones. And part of it came from two things. First, knowing how to work as a team, which is really important. And second, choosing the right language. And the specialists did fascinating, awesome, gorgeous, amazing, mesmerizing kind of job in this regard. And I get to a point that probably that was the last straw for Samsung when it comes to this kind of a trend. They have to do something about it. Otherwise, the whole Samsung company is going to be doomed for failure in the future. Because when I look at the comparisons between these two companies, I looked at the latter, Samsung. For example, I'm not castigating or criticizing negatively the marketing approach that the company has, but they choose bad speakers when they release new products. The whole thing is not well orchestrated. And it seems to me that's coming from the fact that their teams are not putting enough effort together. I'm not going to turn a blind eye to the approaches and innovations in the field of technology, but I'm trying to highlight one key component, which is teamwork. And if you walk on shells, and if you walk on shells, if you feel you're walking on shells, يعني ده تمشي على قشور من البيض, for example, as we say in English, you're afraid to be criticized or you're afraid to say what's in your mind. Eventually, that will add up to the failure of your product. No matter what the product is, it's doomed to fail simply because you feel that you're not listened to, you feel that you're not heard, if the team is not all ears to what you're trying to say, if the team is not able to conceive the fact that you're part of it, you're trying to contribute to it, it's not gonna end well. Everyone is on the same boat. Building on this, again, yesterday, I had the chance to be invited to a small mini conference in Baghdad where people convened from multiple universities, and we were discussing the digital gap in youth and the failure of youth to find jobs just because they lack the soft skills of dealing with Microsoft, documenting their work, presenting themselves, marketing themselves, knowing how to approach private sector companies, and all of that came to a very simple point. And that simple point is their lack of education of how to work as a team. And working as a team is very important. And maybe it's not a piece of cake in the beginning when it comes to, throwing this opinion to people, and then at a drop of a hat, you're getting the answer back. You need to know how to communicate through email. You need to know how to build up a good resume/CV to be presented to the CEOs, to the managers, to those people in charge, and to the stakeholders. sometimes you need to bite the bullet to do something really, really tough, to do stuff that you have never thought that you are going to be able to do them. Albert Einstein always says, and this is a very important quote that gives you an insight of what's going on. We cannot solve our problems by the same mindset that created this kind of problem. This is not exactly and literally how he said it, but I'm trying to quote what he said in my own words. That the kind of problems that we are facing in the 21st century are not going to be troubleshot by the same mindset that created this kind of problem. So we just need to upgrade ourselves. Our minds are like the telephone software. We don't need to reinstall it or install a new operating system in them. We just need to upgrade. We just need to fix the tweaks here and there so we can move on and bridge the gap of collaborative work. That's very important. So I'm going to cut to the chase. Here, I'm going to be brief and get to the point where we just read this, and then I want you to listen to me, and then we will talk about some of the points here that deserve to be talked about. Honestly speaking, sometimes I get caught red-handed just derailing from the points that we're talking about here. Sometimes I get off the track to discuss something very important, pertinent, and to the core of the topic, but I need to digress. To digress is to talk about so many auxiliary topics, or maybe to some extent irrelevant points, just to solidify and enhance information that you're presenting. And that comes from, and that actually comes from my keenness to present to you some kind of quality of organic language, analytically speaking. You need to be a good listener, first of all, and this is something that I've mentioned so many times. You need to burn the midnight oil, which means you need to spend extra time listening, practicing speaking, recording probably yourself, just like the way that I'm doing right now. But in my case, I'm doing some sort of informative tutorials for you, building on the podcast that we had previously taken. And to the point that even if you're feeling under the weather, you listen to me or to another podcast, because the reels are dominating every aspect and sector of YouTube and Instagram and Facebook. And these short reels, I'm not saying they're not good. They're good, but they're short, they're entertaining, they have some musical background, but they do not remedy the gap that we do have in terms of the practice. You need to, make your ears malleable to so much listening. You need to listen a lot to get to the point that, okay, I'm happy, I understand what Mr. Walid is saying, or any other professor or presenter. And knowing that is going to be the asset, the capital, to be part of the skills that you need to be successful at work. Well, I mean, if we come to the to square number one and say, why I'm presenting all of this to you, why am I exerting this amount of effort, and the excruciating phases of editing and uploading to YouTube or Facebook or Instagram, multiple platforms that I have to upload to. It's just for the fact that I need to build 1% more skills in you, so that when you go to the real world, when you go to the real Wild West of job seeking and job vacancies, you are going to be distinctively different from everyone who's presenting his resume, but he doesn't have enough qualifications in language. And then you end up with a monthly payment that satisfies you and satisfies your family. Learning English is a global demand. It's one of the important languages in the world. So if you don't master English now, you will regret it in the future. Whatever steps you do now, the harder you go on yourself right now, the better person, the more productive and successful person you are going to be in the coming months and years, for sure. And chances of work sometimes are frustrating. The opportunities that some people get in terms of like the job availability or vacancy are very limited because of the overpopulation of the country and people trying to compete and find the best job opportunity. So every day spent comes with a silver lining. Every cloud, as we say in English, has a silver lining. And every day that you wake up in, you need to make and seize the best chance of it to improve your English. Work really hard, read more, understand how English language is structured, and you can benefit from the best institute in the world when it comes to language learning, and that is YouTube. In the middle of the night, the hole in the wall appeared again. Wow, interesting. Joanna was happy that she hadn't imagined it. We talked about this structure before because the kind of imagination that she had happened before the appearance. She opened, now open. She opened the empty. The empty, sometimes we say the P and sometimes we don't say the P. So it's up to your discretion when it comes to the pronunciation here. You can say it, and if you don't want to say it, you got the chance not to say it. Bag in front of the hole. In front of the hole. In front of. Look, in front of. Now, this word is front, not front, front, in front of the hole, hole. Then, one by one, she threw things. Look, things. It's not things. Into the hole. Now, this is a very interesting preposition, into, or into. It depends on how you pronounce it, and it depends on its occurrence in the sentence. So things into the hole, or into the hole. It depends on your stress. So it's in and to. It shows that preposition of location and preposition of process or destination, or where it's heading to. Even the wooden shoes. No, the word wooden is an adjective here, and it's made out of wood. Wooden. The pronunciation is wooden. So it's wooden or wooden. The heavy wood door. Shoes went in. The only thing she did not throw, or she didn't throw. Look, English is an economical, like hybrid cars when it comes to pronunciation. And I always affiliate the concept of hybrid cars with speakers of English because they are similar, maybe identical to some extent in cases where the pronunciation takes the advantage of trying to be as much meaningful as possible with the shortest sentences possible. That's very common in every language. It's a biological, instinctual thing that when it comes to pronunciation of English, people try to be very economical when they talk, to mean a lot, to say less, and to mean a lot. The only thing she did not throw in was the bag. When the sun rose, look at the structure. It's in the past simple. Rose is the past of rise. Rose, is the past of rise. In the morning. In the morning. We talk about this word is very important because this word has multiple meanings. The period of time between midnight and noon, especially from sunrise to noon. So morning. And try to not say the G because this is It's I feel when I present this kind of lesson, I present a musical lesson, a music basic lesson, because this sound is deprived from being properly pronounced by most of people in the Middle East, I can say, and the early beginners level of their learning. And the reason of which is that because they always associated with the G or G in some dialects of Arabic, non-standard Arabic, but the sound is ing. So morning, good morning. And the less you stress the G, the more accurate you are when you're pronouncing it. The bag was full and heavy. The bag was full. Look, I'm not saying was. Look, I'm not saying was. I'm saying was. The bag was full and heavy with coins. Heavy, like heavy rain. Heavy. To the point that we have reached here, we end our lesson of the analysis and reading of some of the concepts of language. We have covered few terms, phrasal verbs, idiomatic expressions that bear huge amount of importance, significance, and they should be taken down by you with huge amount of attention. You have to listen to them, carefully analyze what I have said, write down the comments and feedback, probably try to share with me what you have benefited from and learned from this lesson. Eventually, we are building up a structure of a group of podcasts to reach a point where we understand, we amass huge amount of idiomatic expressions that I intentionally mentioned here in this podcast, as well as some of the key points relevant to the reading and pronunciation and historical aspect of language, and all of that comes to your benefit eventually and ability to speak the language in more accurate way. Have a wonderful day, and I look forward to seeing you in another podcast. مدرب اللغة وليد خالد.